This is Off to Battle with Jeremiah Bork, and this is bringing a plot battle to me because I have suckered this army that I need to defeat for one of the Books of Nagash to attack one of my Tomb King garrisons. And I'm doing my best to hold them at bay just long enough for my reinforcements to arrive. And they'll be arriving in 1 minute. So it's just a matter of making sure that these guys don't actually take the center before my reinforcements can get there, which does happen. It can very easily happen. I know people have complained about the siege battles in this version of Warhammer, and definitely, they definitely have a legitimate point about that, but I'm trying to make the most of it. And by declaring war, I made this army come to me, so that's an interesting situation. And they do actually spawn extra armies, and it can be a bit of a chore. So it's just a matter of doing what I can, and here I have strategically placed catapults there, providing some assistance. Now I have Queen Khalida coming in and trying to make a mess of this cavalry. Because I come in with a fairly concentrated force, and this is their rear guard instance. And they're trying to make a mess of the ordinary skeleton chariots, and I have an Rock Spider coming into play. That's quite an increase in threat level. And I have very little organization on my part, because what's my Cascade of Souls doing here? Why is it in melee and losing decisively? So this is the sort of fun, quote-unquote, that you get with Tomb King's battle, because there are always 20 units. You don't have small battles in campaigns with Tomb Kings. So it's always a mess to control everything. But it's not like we're going, oh my goodness, my regular catapults are also there. And now Cygor is tossing rocks at me. They don't think they live in glass houses. They're the first ones to cast stones. And yes, it's a cheap joke, but I'm going to keep making it. So the point of all this is that I wanted to try taking these guys down near an actual city. Because they will siege, so if they can be induced to attack, and I can have a reinforcing army because they only think that it's a weak force. Then I can do things like messing up their Cygor and neutralizing him before he actually causes too much trouble. And over here, I'm just trying to set up a defense in the middle that will hold just long enough. Of course, the gate didn't last long. So it's strictly a matter of having my catapult be able to take pot shots and do what they can. And of course, they're sneaking things up the back. I have some archers here out of the way, and then we have the Minotaurs of the Galactic Spider, which is a huge threat in both senses of the word, taking on the relatively light skeleton spear infantry. And at this point, the thing about Tomb Kings as reinforcements is their basic units are very slow. So I have some skeleton warriors coming in and they're fighting Savage Orc Begins in the streets, which is not a great fight for them, but Khalida will help correct that mess. The Beast Lord, he's unbreakable. And once he actually activates by you going to war with him, he starts gaining levels and stuff. He's only level 1 when it starts, but yeah, taking a little archer fire. But as you can see, it's a huge mess back here. Because it's very difficult to stop fast units like Minotaurs from coming up the back. I try to have my tower get upgraded so that it actually does some work on these people. And everything else is just taking pot shots. But I was gambling that, Khalida herself is actually fairly fast. These archer chariots coming in and trying to do what they can from behind. But yeah. That's quite a miss. We shall take a close-up of a very ugly Arachnarok spider and all this chaos going on. Lots of arrows coming in, but it doesn't seem to affect things very much. It's quite a mess being a ranged faction. Quote-unquote, a ranged faction. And have that reload nerf affecting it so much, because the Tomb Kings don't have that many ways to get around. They have a few, but it's for one unit at a time. So I really had no idea if I was going to actually hold this long enough to keep this city viable. I mean, the real end victory point is here in this spot. This is the rally point. This is where we get a bonus to defense. Khalida there with her Venom Wave and making some good progress, trying to chew her way to that Arachnarok spider and bring a stop to its predations. Not that she's anti-large, but she can do so much damage. And she has inherent poison. So now that we're starting to get proper reinforcements, it's helping a lot with making this, somewhat come under control. And that may be enough for the Ashanti. Yeah, it is, so I'll be having some summon support coming fairly soon. And it's good for one thing, it's for getting attacks from behind. This used to be a dwarven settlement. I took it from its original owners. So now the Skull Catapult is, well, probably having some of our own forces a little too much, but here we go with the Ashanti and Shakti. When I say it fast, I don't pronounce it well. So Khalida is just parking on this spot and just making sure that she's there to help with this and help with that. Now trying to get rid of this Arachnarok spider. Finally it's shattering. So that's going to leave the beast alone because the army is recognizing its defeat. That was a one-man secondary army that came to reinforce. And this is just trying to inflict enough damage to actually finish him off. Finish off this giant spider. Because this isn't enough to completely destroy the army. Therefore, it would be useful to get these single entities down as much as humanly possible. And that's it for that. So you see the tail of the tape. Actually, these guys did a lot of damage. That's probably against the settlement defenders. And you see that they didn't do very well. But hey, they held. They held long enough, and we got a lot of stuff done. And this was all that was necessary to get the Book of Nagash. So after this, it was just wrapping up. But I'm going to show it. Because as you can see, they get some replenishment. It's not like it was a gimme battle. So here, because I had high ground to work with, I just tried to make them come at me. Come at me, bro. I mean, when you think about it, Ragnarok spiders, Cygors, trolls, minotaurs, it's a pretty big deal. So yeah, I mean, I'm willing them down a little bit, but that artillery isn't going to do that much. It's just not the type of situation where they would do that. So now we're seeing all the archers try to impose their will on the battle. They're very consistent, I'll give them that. If you can actually keep them out of melee, they're very consistent. But we're using the natural features here to just try and choke them off and make sure that they don't get into too good a situation getting into our background. But here, we had the Goblin Riders, and they were getting into the background. So that was a difficult situation. But on the other hand, I had the Skeleton Chariots hiding in the trees, and used them to counter that to some degree. There was still a lot here. That's the thing. I mean, it looks like that Khalida's army has the advantage on paper. In fact, the numbers are very lopsided against us. But I was mainly depending on this being rock solid because they couldn't outflank us here. And I was using the artillery to wheel down things like their archer units. But then just to bring Khalida in, Venom Wave. Let's try to be consistent about things. And then probably just casting a spell to enhance the ranged fire of a particular unit. Because the Shabti with great bows are extremely good in a wide variety of circumstances. And I have multiple ones in this army. So they're very good at certain things. There's a lot of big targets for them to shoot at. But it takes time for that to happen. And here you see we're just breaking them down. They're taking a toll, but keeping formation is important to stop them from getting into the archers and the artillery. And here I'm just having to try to finish off this beast here. And he's not long for this week. It said that the Shabti are not actually hitting them. There we go. Ooh. That was dramatic. So that's the end of this replay. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. Until we're off to battle again, this has been Jeremiah. Take care and have fun.